If our health little bit goes here and there, it becomes a great problem. When you're going out for a job and you cannot focus on your job, if there is a problem in the family relationship, then that becomes a problem. You cannot focus on your job, you cannot do any of the things, properly. And if your wealth is not there, then it becomes a problem throughout the way, and it becomes very difficult. We are counting on each and every penny then. How am I spending each and every dollar? Everything becomes very, very calculated. If something goes wrong, if we have a spiritual consciousness or if we have a spiritual guide, we can always take help and balance that thing. Hare Krishna. Speaking to one of the devotees outside, and he just came to know that I am giving the talk here, and he asked, what's the topic? I told, secret of balancing lifestyle. Well, wow, that's a good thing. And the next thing he told me was, I asked him, so what is your secret? And he was telling, I wish I had no balance at all. Well, wow. I was shocked. Well, yeah, I was thinking if one day I am a monk and next day I am a married man, how it will be. One day I go to work and another day I'm just off the work. One day I eat a lot and next 2 or 3 days I don't eat a lot. Is that the right thing of balance? I asked, no, life doesn't go like that. Life is never like this. In fact, if we see, nothing can last or survive without balance. Balance is such a vital thing in all our lives. All our lives actually play a vital role. So if we want to do anything for a lasting thing, then what we need is, we need a little bit of balance like this. I cannot see my laptop down for a long time and cannot face all of you, so I need a proper balance. So we need balance. We need to balance something sometimes. And when there is balance, what comes is, then comes peace and harmony. Then the life becomes very, very perfect. And the life is very wonderful when the life is more balanced. Is it not? How many of us feel like that? Is it easy? No? No, that's the challenge actually. That's the challenge what the material world always gives us into this predicament, into this difficult situation. So at certain times when there is some degree of imbalance is actually all necessary sometimes. What happens when there is imbalance in our life? Then we go back to our basics. Then we actually upgrade our skills if there is some imbalance in our life. Then we look for something what we were lacking. Or else if everything was going very peacefully, then one person or that person will have been very calm in that situation, but he will not increase his appetite to grow. So sometimes imbalance is required for a person to grow. So, but if we don't get balance properly, if this imbalance is there for a long time, then that's a big problem. And most of the time when there is imbalance, then occasionally it's okay, but if most of the time it is there, then it's very painful, very sorrowful situation. And one feels like, there is a constant struggle for that thing. And, somehow or the other, we strive to do the balancing act in our lives. But what we face is, there is always something or the other which comes up and makes our life imbalanced. Why does that happen? Why does an imbalance come in our lives? Why? Yes?
Maybe because things are always changing.
Yeah, things are always changing. Okay. Why does imbalance come? Yes, Krishna.
I was just talking to Isabel and Matthew. We were talking about sometimes imbalances come to learn, to give us lessons.
Yes, it comes to give us lessons. Definitely, it comes to give us lessons. But the more important thing is, the material world is created by the Lord in such a way that this world is very very temporary, and things keep on changing. That's the nature of the law, the nature of the world, that things keep on changing. And if we don't change according to the things which are changing, then we go into imbalance. That is one of the main things. If one doesn't understand that thing, then he loses his imbalance over a period of time. Even though he's trying to balance, but it becomes like a tough thing for him. So, balance, the one golden word that is essential for our physical, mental, and spiritual life. It is a key for peace, harmony, and all purpose. If you see, just if you understand a little bit about balancing the life, or if you see around the world, everything runs on proper balance. The earth and the sun, if there is no proper balance, what would have happened? If earth is little nearer to the sun, the earth would have been destroyed by or burnt because of the high temperature what it is going to face. Or if the earth is little far further away from the sun, what would have happened? Freezed. It would have been freezed. So if earth is at the right balanceful situation in the orbit, then it is proper. One little bit of movement here and there will have will cause a disaster. So it's very important. Like, if you see in our body also, when we take care of our body, little bit of imbalance in our air, our Pran, then there is an imbalance, and then we fall sick. Kapha, Pitta, Vayu, all these things, little bit of imbalance. One dosh becomes little more, then immediately it affects the other. And then it has a great effect on the body. And then immediately we fall sick, or we, everything changes according to our body then. If you see, I was introduced as a cook. I know how important is the balance of fire. If the fire is little more or little less, and if we are not able to take control of the fire, the cooking can be a disaster. You will burn the item like anything, or you will not cook the item. I had that experience once. I felt I kept the stove on very low, and then I left. I thought I'll come back after 10 minutes and see. But the stove was switched off only because the flame was very low. And what was supposed to cook in those 10 minutes, it did not cook, and it got served. Oh my goodness. And everyone was telling, and that was rice. Can you imagine rice not cooked for 10 minutes? And it's like, everyone was feeling one grain as if they're eating the grain. And I was like, oh my goodness, such a small mistake. Such a small thing. Fire not controlled, gone. So imbalance can come anywhere. Now we are all sitting, right? If someone sits like this, or if he doesn't sit properly, then what will happen? He'll fall down, or after some time the body starts paining, because it's not sitting properly. So balance is required even for sitting. Even for walking, we need right balance. One step here and there, and we fall down. So balance is like the life main thing in one way. Whatever we do, we need balance. So if we are not balancing, then it will be a great problem for us. So balance comes with what? 3 things are very important for balancing. One is regulation, discipline, and punctuality. If we are not doing this thing, it becomes a big problem for us. And we want to achieve any goal, anything, these 3 are must actually. And if we go to this aspect, what are the 4 questions of balanced human life? Is these 4 things: spiritual, physical, emotional, and intellectual. If a human being doesn't have the right balance, if it doesn't come to this thing, then it becomes very, very difficult. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us what is balance. What is balance? Balance is, Bhagavad Gita teaches us there are 3 types of gunas. What are the 3 gunas? 3 modes? Okay, sattva, rajas and tamas. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. Is it not? These these three modes are there. And out of these three modes, which is the mode which is very important for anything? Sattva guna, or the goodness, mode of goodness. In any activity we do, if the mode of goodness is not there, one cannot balance it. One cannot balance it easily. Even for a soldier who is like a very passionate person, he has to fight very nicely or very vigorously. But what is required is to have a calm mind. And for having the calm mind, what is required? He has to have mode of goodness. He should be able to think properly and act properly. For that, it's very important that if he doesn't have this mode of goodness, even though his nature is very passionate, but he has to have the mode of goodness in him to do anything. Even any activity, I'm just giving an example of a soldier, but then any activity you take, we need mode of goodness at certain level to make our life very peaceful. When there is life in this regard, then it becomes very easy. What comes with mode of goodness? There are three qualities of mode of goodness. That is purity, balance and clarity. These three things are definitely required for anything. Mode of goodness brings these three things. There is purity in thought, clarity of what we are doing, what is the vision, what is the goal one has to achieve, and what exactly is the balance he can make out. So when mode of goodness is there, it is always like this. Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, he also tells that mode of goodness is required for one to balance his life, especially spiritual life. And we are looking for something spiritual here. So spiritual life is like, mode of goodness is not there for a person, it's very difficult. Life will become like very difficult for him to live. So the most important thing is, what happens when the life becomes imbalanced? What happens when the life is imbalanced? Without balance, there is constant firefighting. Is it not? We just have to struggle with all the things which are going around. And we have to be so reactive. A person becomes very, very reactive. And there is mental and physical exhaustion like anything. He's exhausted with his mental capacity if there is no imbalance. And then there is no clear goal, neither there is no direction where he is going. Especially for a devotee or for a person who is trying to practice some spiritual principles, there has to be clear goal and clear purity. So when there is balance, what happens is he's proactive, and his intention, he sustains his energy and his well-being. He carries himself well-beingly, and then his clarity is very clear and his purpose is very clear. So when we want to strive a balance, what is very important for us? One of the key factor is here. What is very important? To have clarity of purpose. If there is no clarity of purpose, then we cannot achieve any outcome of anything actually. So it's very important that we have clarity of purpose. Now this is very interesting. When it comes to balancing the life, there is, I think, it's very easy. Sometimes I think I'll set my timetable. Everything should go according to the timetable. Morning I'll get up, I'll go for work, I'll come back, I'll do this spiritual practice and everything. But does that happen every time? Why? Because it's not static. Balance is not static. It is always dynamic. It is always dynamic. And it keeps changing. A simple example, when we switch on the fan directly comes to what speed? It comes to the maximum speed? No. It comes from the lower speed to the maximum speed. And when we switch off the fan, it comes from maximum speed to the lower speed. It takes some time. So it's always static or dynamic? Dynamic. It's always dynamic. So our balance also has to always be dynamic. So one has to learn the way of balancing the life. So for that, the purpose has to be very clear. Our destination has to be very clear. Our path should be very clear. What am I achieving actually? What am I doing? In this human form of life, what am I achieving actually? What am I supposed to do? If the path is not clear, then it becomes very, very challenging. So it has to be this destiny or the purpose. If it is not clear, then we cannot put so much energy in what we are doing. Then life becomes a lot of imbalance in our life. It brings a imbalance in our life. And it becomes very difficult that one can do anything and everything. And according to the purpose, what happens is our determination to do the right thing can happen. Or else it's very difficult, we don't have the determination because there is no purpose. Where am I going to put my energy if I don't have a goal? What am I going to do? For a spiritual practitioner, it's very important that he should know what his goal is. How is he progressing in his spiritual practice? And how is he going to achieve the goal? If these three things are not clear, then it becomes very, very difficult for a person to achieve this thing. So, in this regard, there is this very beautiful thing, the 6 departments of our life, which are very important. If we miss one of the aspects, then it's very difficult that our life can be in balance. This is very, very simple thing, but very, very profound. What are the 6 things? Health. Second is wealth. Everyone needs wealth, right? And third is job and profession. His job, his profession, his family, social life, and the spiritual life. If these 6 aspects are not there, then it becomes very, very difficult actually that he can do something. Health, little bit of health is lost, then it affects everything. If wealth is not there, again it affects everything. If job is not there, then it affects everything again. You might have wealth, but if you don't have anything to do, no occupation, then that also affects, because there, you don't know how to spend your time, how to do any productive act. And if the family is little bit, if there is relationship strain, then there is a problem also in the life. And then, if you don't have social life, then it becomes a big problem again. And the most important thing, which I have kept it at the last, is the spiritual life. If spiritual life is not there, if your spiritual consciousness is not there, then it affects everything actually. It affects everything because we don't have the right consciousness to see or balance all these 5 things. You can name them, but you can think about these aspects, and these aspects are very important in one regard, that how these things actually affects us a lot. If our health little bit goes here and there, it becomes a great problem. When you're going out for a job and you cannot focus on your job, if there is a problem in the family relationship, then that becomes a problem. You cannot focus on your job, you cannot do any of the things properly. And if your wealth is not there, then it becomes a problem throughout the way, and it becomes very difficult. We are counting on each and every penny then. How am I spending each and every dollar? Everything becomes very, very calculative. But the spiritual aspect is very important for all these things. Why? Why is spiritual aspect very important? Spiritual life very important? Okay, it gives meaning. Yes. Why is this spiritual aspect very important? Yes. Guidance. Yes, it gives guidance. It gives a clear thought in any of these any of the departments of the life. If something goes wrong, if we have a spiritual consciousness or if we have a spiritual guide, we can always take help and balance that thing. Now if you see what is the ripple effect, it's very important, like how I was telling. Sometimes if we work out very hard and if we lose our health, if we have a chronic disease or if we have something, then it becomes very, very challenging. And if we have strained relationship, then it affects everything. You cannot focus, you cannot work, or cannot do anything. If you have poor social connections, then also it affects everything. It affects everything. But if you reduce your spiritual practice, then it affects everything in one way. Overall, the root cause is that there will be an imbalance in all the ripple, and it becomes a ripple actually. It affects everything in the life. And that's why then, what happens in our lives is, this happened. We go into panic zone, or we go into stretch zone, or we go into comfort zone. Which zone is good? Stretch? Comfort is good? Stretch is good, or panic? Panic is anyway not good. Stretch or comfort? Stretch. Yes, stretch zone is always good. Comfort zone is always boring or very repetitive. You get used to it and you don't want to come above that thing. When there is stretch zone, there is innovative, then there is challenges, there is thrill, there is something you want to do, something new you want to do. And then when there is panic, then you are always, you have some phobia, you lose confidence, you are imbalanced, you're fatigued, or you are tired of what you're doing, and you feel like there is nothing ahead actually. Or you get burnt out for doing some things, burnt out in relationships, burnt out in working, or burnt out in your health. So if these things are not taken care, if you are not in the stress zone, and it's always not good that one should be in the stress zone. Sometimes he has to be in comfort zone, sometimes he has to be in stress zone, but very few times in the panic zone. Not that his life is always in a panic zone. Just imagine if someone is running every day to the job. He's like somehow or the other reaching at exactly at 10 a.m. How much panic he will be in, it's like, what is the point, every day if you're running like that? Best is to, go at least 10 minutes before you are peacefully settled down, and you are very peacefully, welcoming your lead, boss or anyone like that. It becomes very easy. But then if you are like, in a stressful zone or a panic zone, then it becomes like, oh my God, you're just reaching on 9:59. Oh my goodness, you're just waiting to tap exactly on the right time, and then if someone comes in the between, or anything happens, then it becomes you loses your consciousness, it affects your consciousness. So it's always good to be on comfort zone, be on the good mode of goodness while doing the things. And the most important thing is, stress zone is always a learning zone. Comfort zone is good, but then stress zone is always learning. You can learn a lot, you can achieve many things, and you can do a lot of things actually. And this is how the life becomes very, very peaceful actually. There is spirituality, there is neutrality, exercise is there, there is some relationship is there, finance is there. You're giving time to everything, not just you're giving time to one thing. Sometimes the problem comes when you give a lot of time to one of the aspect, and if you forget to address the other aspect. Like if you're working, and if you don't take care of the health, then what happens? Your health will deteriorate, and you will lose your health, and that becomes like a big thing in one way. So one has to take care of all these aspects. So in this regard, what does Krishna tells in Gita? Krishna tells very beautiful verse. Yukta hara viharasya yukta chetasa karmeshu yukta sapna sabandhasya yoga bhavanti dukkhada. Can someone read the translation, please?
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
Yes, he who is regulated. The principle of balancing is given here. He who is regulated in whatever he is doing, his habit of eating, his habit of sleeping, his habit of recreation, his habit of work, can mitigate all material pains. And everyone wants to mitigate his material pains, right? Who wants material pain? You want material pain? Maybe I asked the wrong question. Who doesn't want material pain? No one, right? Yeah. Yeah, we don't want material pain at all, We want to be very happy every time. Because the nature of the soul is to be happy. He has to be Ananda, So he's looking for happiness. He doesn't want any pain at all. But how can one come to the right thing is by having a very regulated lifestyle. And now the main thing for regulated lifestyle is very important. Now what does this picture tells you about? I just want to have you think about this thing. Why is this very important? Or why is this I'm putting in my presentation? Okay. Okay, building a foundation for all the study and the life, yes. And what does the foundation should stand on? Something? Okay, something that doesn't change. That's the important thing. Foundation should be always be on something that doesn't change. If foundation is there, which is always changing, then it's very tough. And what is that something which doesn't change? Okay, someone is telling Krishna. Yes. What else?
Spiritual nature.
Yes, spiritual nature. Most importantly is spiritual values. this is where our foundation can be very strong. This is where we can make our foundation very strong. And all these things, what we are discussing, all different things in our life, if they don't stand on the spiritual foundation, then it can, if any small thing comes and disturbs any of the one thing, then everything can crumble down. Everything falls apart. So spiritual foundation, if you make your building on the spiritual foundation, then everything can be balanced very nicely. You can make a 70-story building, but if the foundation is not strong, then it cannot stand for a long time. So before construction, what happens is they dig down, they make the foundation very strong. So in our lives also, whatever we do, if we are not standing on the right principles, spiritual principles, then it's very difficult that we can bring balance. Balance has to come, then foundation has to be very strong. If foundation is not there, then whatever we do, we may achieve big things, but over a period of time we will lose imbalance. So we need to have the right consciousness and the right conceptions actually in our lives if we are having the right spiritual foundation. If this is not there, then it becomes very difficult. Okay, so what are the spiritual foundations or spiritual aspects for a life? There are 4 aspects which are very important. It's just not one thing, but these are the 4 aspects for a spiritual life or spiritual practitioner that he should have it in his life. His sadhana. What is sadhana? Sadhana is his connection with the spiritual sound vibration. How much he is connected with the spiritual sound vibration. I heard a very beautiful saying from one of my senior monks, and he was telling that a spiritual sound practitioner should be like, it's a very wonderful statement. It's like if one wants to advance in his spiritual bhakti, he should always be haunted by spiritual sound vibration, and he should be hunting for services. And both are in this aspect, haunted by spiritual sound vibration. When when do we use haunted word?
Ghosts.
When they are ghost. And how is it that a person who acts when he's affected by a ghost, he's very different, right? But for a spiritual sound for a spiritual practitioner, one who is affected with the right sound vibration, he's haunted with spiritual consciousness. His consciousness always increases. He's not affected by the world around. He's not affected by the things around. Does a ghost is affected by the things around? No, right? He's not affected. Same way, when we are haunted by the spiritual sound vibration, what happens is we are not affected by the material pains or material things which are going around us. And that was like such a wonderful statement. When I heard this thing, a devotee should always be haunted by spiritual sound vibration and should be hunting for spiritual services. That is like such a wonderful thing. When I heard, I thought, oh my God, this is like the statement. So one aspect of our spiritual life is and what is the best spiritual sound vibration what we are surrounded with? With this mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the more we are surrounded with this spiritual sound vibration, the more it affects us actually. So it's very good that, as a spiritual practitioner, one should make sure that he is always surrounded with this spiritual sound vibration. And we have very simple thing, we just do the kirtan, do the meditation, how we were doing earlier. And then we have our personal meditation through practicing by chanting on the beats. See, if one makes that thing as an habit every day, just spending some 10-15 minutes or 20 minutes before he starts the day, then his consciousness is set for the day. And he can balance his life very nicely because he is in touch with the spiritual sound vibration. So his sadhana, his connection with the spiritual sound vibration is very important. And then comes the swadhyay. For having the right conceptions in the life, what we need is, we need systematic ongoing study of the sacred books. We have so many sacred books actually. And if we don't touch them, read them, then how is it that we have the right conceptions? Because we carry whatever conceptions we get to hear, or we meet some people and we carry that conceptions. But to get the right conceptions in our life, we need to touch these books, we need to read them. And once you start reading them, then what happens is our contemplation will be very nice. Our perspective to see a small thing in the life, in the world, changes a lot, because we are seeing through these sacred books. So that is so important. When we want to change our vision, what is required is we need to have the right conceptions. And right conception comes through the sacred books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayana, other books which are there. And third important thing is we need to engage ourselves in some spiritual services. Whatever way we can do, whatever skills we have, we can utilize to serve the Supreme Lord, we can utilize to serve Krishna, we can serve the people around if we have the right services. And then the last thing is the sambandh. We can always have very nice relationship with our spiritual mentors, and we can have very nice friends who are like-minded, who are not going to pull us down, but who are going to uplift us. That is very important. Friendship means those who are always uplifting us, not pulling us down. So these are like the main thing on which if you make your balance, if you make your life, then you can make your 100-story building also, and then you can achieve success in the life. And the last thing is TPEA formula, that is always think, always plan, and always execute, and then again analyze. If you don't do this thing, then it becomes very, very challenging that you will be able to be successful in your practice. So for this thing, last couple of slides, then what is important is know your priorities. What is urgent, what is important, what is not urgent, what is not important. So if you are able to figure out your priorities in the life, then you can do things very nicely. If you don't plan it, if you plan to fail, then you are failing to plan. Is it not? So plan your day, plan your life, plan your week, plan your month. Then you can plan your life very easily. If not, then your life will go in whatever direction it's flowing in. So it's very important. Have you defined your priorities? This is a homework for all of you. Have you defined your priorities? Just think about this thing. Have you organized your life based on those priorities? And do you have the discipline in sticking to those priorities? This is all your own internal thing, what you need to think always. So it's very important that one have the right priorities. One organizes his life according to the priorities what he is based on. And then do we have the discipline to again follow this thing? So just for the right priorities, we should know the right, do the right, and discipline the right. That is what is required. If you know the right things in our life, and how do we know the right things?
Study.
Yes, study. Through the studies, through hearing from saintly people, we can know what is right. That is the right things. And doing the right things, we need the right association of like-minded people who help us always to uplift our consciousness. And the third thing is to discipline our things, our priorities, what we are doing. Then our life can be successful. Then we can balance our life very easily. So this is all I wanted to share with all of you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any questions, any comments, or any feedbacks?
It's awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
So you were explaining how things can, when things are out of balance, can ripple out.
Yes.
How can having too much money be a problem? Too much wealth.
Yeah, how can having too much money or too much wealth can be a problem? See, if we don't know how to utilize it, then it becomes a problem. Then we utilize the same money in doing all the wrong things in the life. And one becomes very proud if he has money. He will not value what a person is going through when a person doesn't have money. And he'll be very proud of, he'll be feeling so much proud that, he has so much money that he can spend anything and everything. And he cannot value what the life is for a person who is living in a Bauri or something like that, or a person is living like that. So it's very important that if he doesn't understand what the value of the money is, then it can become a problem for him eventually. But if he utilizes the money properly in serving the right causes, then it can be a great boon in one way. It all depends on what is your conception. If you don't have the right conception of utilizing the things properly, then the same thing can cause a great havoc to you. And just for example, if you have a knife, the same knife cuts the vegetables and you can cook a very nice feast. But if you don't know how to use, a small girl is having a knife in the hand, what can she do? She can always harm herself. So to have the right conception and to use it properly, one should know what he's dealing with. So wealth can always be dealt properly or improperly. Depends on the right consciousness. Thank you. Yes.
How much to balance what? How does it change with the phases of life? How would we know this is the life?
Yeah, actually, when we pass through different phases of our life, definitely the balance also keeps changing because our focus and goal is changing every time. Our focus and goal, like a student, what is his main goal is to achieve highest grades in his subjects. That is the goal. But when a person comes while working, his goal is to earn as much money as he wants, in a best way, and to have a very nice job, a satisfying job. So the goal has completely shifted. So same way, the balance also shifts accordingly. And we need to, when we are shifting from one phase of the life to another phase of the life, there will be little imbalance, or there will be there will be some struggle there. And during that struggle, if a person leaves to struggle, then it will be a great problem for him. But if he struggles and then balances the life, then it becomes very peaceful. So one has to just keep striving, because balance, every day it has to, we have to balance it. It's not that, one day I balance and the next day the life will be balanced. It cannot be like that. It's always dynamic. Every time you have to get up early in the morning. Every time for that you have to sleep early in the night. It's not that, one day I sleep and one day I get up. It's not like that. Right? So one has to balance every day. And every phase also of life, one has to balance it. Thank you. Yes?
Those 6 aspects of life.
Yeah. I'll show it to you once again.
And could you categorize those first 5 as like the material world, and then the last one, obviously, the spiritual world?
Yes. The first 5 may be material, but it can be made spiritual also. It depends on your spiritual consciousness, what you have. Your health you can work on your health, because this body, we think we have the consciousness that this body has been given by the Supreme Lord Krishna. So we are taking care of this body. Then our consciousness is spiritual. Then that aspect of taking care of the health is also spiritual. And wealth, if you utilize it in the right service, then the wealth also becomes in one way a very good aspect, because our consciousness is changing every time. And for job, if we do everything, whatever we get from the job or whatever profession we have, whatever things we have, we want to offer it back to Krishna. So that becomes a spiritual thing. And when we have family, we are always taking care of each other, because we think, or we have this consciousness that everyone is the member, everyone is a child of the Lord. So let me take care of everyone very nicely. Let me not harm him. Let me not speak in such a way that I am causing pain to his heart. So that consciousness is there then. And then whatever social life I have, it's for making as much as connection, as many as friends I have. Let me, let me just bring them closer to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that is what is very important for us to have the spiritual life as the most foundation thing, and then we can have these aspects to grow in a spiritual consciousness. Then it becomes balancing, then we can balance it very nicely. Okay, thank you. Yes?
You said that if one of these were to be blocked off, or whatever term you want to use, then you said it'll obviously affect the rest of them.
Yes.
But what if the case was that one of those were kind of infiltrating upon the other?
One of them?
What if one of these 6 departments were blocking one of the others?
Yes, definitely. If one of them also is not there, that's why the ripple effect is there. Why does the ripple effect happen? If the health is not good, you cannot focus on all the other remaining things. And if you don't have wealth, then it becomes a problem for everything. So all these things are very interdependent. All these things are very interdependent actually. And if you don't take care of one of the departments also, or one of the things in the life, then it becomes a problem. Suppose I have a fight with my friend, and I cannot focus on my studies at all. Why? Because my consciousness has been disturbed completely. So I cannot even focus on my study, and I cannot even do anything properly, because one of the things has been dependent, and then eventually when you balance it, when you make it proper, then things will start flowing it. So life is all about balancing all these aspects together. One has to balance everything. It's not just that one can keep working and lose his thing. Just imagine if a mother is just working and working, then she's not able to take care of the child at all. So it's very important that the mother has to balance taking care of the child, taking care of the family, taking care of the job, and taking care of herself. If her health is gone, then it will affect everything. So it's very important that all these aspects are taken care. But if she has a spiritual consciousness, then it affects everything. Then she can take care of them in a very spiritual way. Is that okay? Yeah. This is the last question. Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
When you were asking this question, what I heard was it like if one part of the life was impeding on the other?
Yes.
Mm.
Exactly.
So if, say, family is kind of strained already and that impedes on the social life,
Yes.
maybe is that kind of a question, an example, like what to do if it's something out of your control but it's impeding on something else, the balance?
So if something is impeding the other thing, then we really have to work on making that thing proper. If one doesn't take care, if just imagine if the child health is gone bad, the mother has to focus her complete attention to take care of the child. That time she cannot focus more on what she's doing as a job. That time she has to definitely take leave and then take care of the child. So in that way, it's quite sometimes it's like an emergency case that we have to focus our thing on that aspect right now. If I don't focus it, then I will lose my balance, and that will affect my life like anything. So during such time, we have to focus on that aspect, and health has to be taken care. Relationships has to be taken care. Emergencies have to be taken care. Sometimes there are deadlines, and that time you cannot think, okay, my health will go wrong if I don't extend. I just have to sleep at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock if I am habituated of sleeping at 8 o'clock. Then you have to extend till 12 or maybe late, and then you have to work for that time. So during that period, definitely we extend, but that shouldn't be every day. That is the thing. If it is happening every day, then it becomes toxic, then it becomes painful, then one suffers a lot. So sometimes it will affect, but not all the time. Then we are always in the panic zone. We don't want to be in panic zone. We should be most of the time in like stretch zone, not in the comfort zone, not in the panic zone, but sometimes in stretch zone.
So would you say resistance is in the stretch zone?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So